Renegade Immortal, Chapter 641, Celestial Cloud Cultivation Couple, Wang Wei, Hu Huan. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Books with AR. Wang Lin's pupils immediately shrank and he looked down at his bag of holding. He split a piece of his divine sense to enter the bag of holding and found that the mysterious scroll he found back on Suzaku had automatically opened. There was a violet light coming from the scroll, creating the shadow of a woman. This figure was extremely beautiful. With her back toward Wang Lin, it was as if she kept softly whispering, "Go down." Wang Lin wasn't unfamiliar with the beautiful figure inside the scroll. Back on Suzaku, when he had to deal with the beasts the third ancestor released, this figure from within the scroll appeared and took control of those beasts. Wang Lin had always been puzzled about the scroll. Right after he reached the Ascendant stage, he took out the scroll when he was in the Soul Refining tribe and made no progress. Although he could leave an imprint on the scroll, he couldn't control it. At this moment, the figure in the scroll appeared once more. Wang Lin sent out a divine sense message. "Go down this deep pit?" The figure softly whispered again, "Go down." Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he withdrew his divine sense. He looked down at the deep pit. The pit was completely dark, and all he could see was darkness. After pondering a bit, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and chased after Zhou Yi. Could there be something inside the deep pit that is related to the scroll? Wang Lin pondered as he chased after Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi's voice came from the front. "There is a mysterious force inside the pit that affects the mind. If one's mind isn't strong enough, they will fall in." Zhou Yi reminded again, "Don't look any more and continue flying." Wang Lin nodded and focused his mind as he flew with Zhou Yi through the corridor. The suction from the pit would suddenly become strong or weak. After an unknown amount of time, the celestial sword Zhou Yi was in suddenly stopped, and Wang Lin stopped as well. They were already at the eastern part of the corridor, and the path before them was completely dark. "Be careful, there is something strange about the pit," Zhou Yi's voice came out. Just as Zhou Yi said this, a purple mist suddenly came out from the pit and surrounded the area. Zhou Yi's voice became somewhat illusory inside the mist. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. This mist's appearance was simply too strange. Not only did this mist block sight, it also limited divine sense to less than 30 feet. When he extended any more than that, the divine sense would disappear as if it was devoured by the mist. Even at 30 feet, what he could see with his divine sense was somewhat blurry. At the same time, the suction from the pit seemed to increase with the appearance of the mist. However, this suction had no effect on the mist itself. It was extremely strange. There was a flash of sword light in the mist in front of Wang Lin, and then Zhou Yi's celestial sword flew over. It circled around Wang Lin, and Zhou Yi sent a divine sense message. "Forget it. Climb up, Wang Lin, and I'll take you over. This mist is a bit strange. I'm afraid there might be danger with your strength." Wang Lin didn't waste time and stepped on the celestial sword. A surge of celestial energy came from the sword into Wang Lin's feet and flowed through his entire body. "Stabilize your energy, focus your mind, and don't let the celestial energy escape." Zhou Yi's words echoed in Wang Lin's mind. Wang Lin immediately did what Zhou Yi said, and the celestial energy inside his body suddenly trembled. It left his meridians and formed a glittering screen of celestial energy. Not only did the screen of light contain celestial energy, it also contained sword energy. The screen spread out and the purple mist was suddenly pushed back. A tunnel in the mist was created as if a pair of giant hands had opened a path. Zhou Yi turned into a ray of light carrying Wang Lin and flew directly through the purple mist. As the celestial sword flew through, the purple mist was pushed away. Even when the purple mist wasn't pushed away by the screen, the powerful sword energy from the celestial sword made the purple mist disappear. The celestial sword was too fast, so fast that Wang Lin felt the powerful wind hit his face. The purple mist seemed to have turned into a sea of mist. This was an illusion caused by the fact that they were going too fast. The feeling that he only had when he had just entered the cultivation world hundreds of years ago appeared once more. This made him quite melancholy. This is the real celestial sword and sword feeling. Although my celestial sword has the strength, the sword feeling is not strong enough to use its full power. Although Zhou Yi has a rebellious nature, this devil likes to bully the weak but fears the strong. This devil won't be able to escape from me. Just at this moment, the purple mist began to churn and became to expand. Then a powerful suction force came suddenly from the bottomless pit where the mist came from. The powerful suction force came too suddenly. The mist that was originally not affected by this suction was also quickly sucked into the pit. The suction from the pit came stronger and stronger, causing the mist to be quickly sucked into the pit. At the same time, some fine gravel along the walls were also sucked in. At this moment, in the corridor in the distance, there was a large sword stuck in the wall. It began to tremble and started to move little by little out of the wall. Finally, with a bang, it was pulled out from the wall and went directly toward the pit due to the suction. At this moment, the sword Zhou Yi was in flew by. Wang Lin was able to recognize the familiar big gold sword going toward the deep pit. Zhou Yi didn't hesitate to turn around and turn toward the deep pit, toward the big sword. The suction forces inside and outside the deep pit were extremely different. Now that Zhou Yi flew into the pit and was flying toward it, his speed was faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, they caught up to the big golden sword. Wang Lin revealed a look of decisiveness while on the celestial sword and immediately caught the big sword. However, the deep pit's suction force had already wrapped around the big sword. Now that Wang Lin grabbed the sword, it was the same as stealing a treasure from the deep pit and fighting against the suction force. The moment he grabbed it, there was suddenly a powerful pull. Wang Lin's body became unstable for a moment, and he almost fell off the celestial sword. At this moment of crisis, Wang Lin took a deep breath, and an underworld river suddenly appeared around him. Under Wang Lin's control, the underworld river began to spiral violently around him, forming a vortex with him at the center. The suction on Wang Lin weakened, and then he immediately pulled on the sword. The big sword stopped falling into the pit and was slowly pulled back. A roar came from Zhou Yi, and the roar seemed to contain a sword spirit spell. The sword released a flash of light, and Zhou Yi suddenly pulled Wang Lin toward the opening of the pit. Wang Lin felt like his body was about to be torn apart. The big sword in his right hand seemed to have infinite weight. He stood on the celestial sword, and the veins on his face popped. As Zhou Yi charged upward, the big sword held by Wang Lin slowly pulled up as well. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with determination. At this moment, he mustn't let go. He was afraid the sword would never see the light of day again if he let go. While Zhou Yi charged up, the big sword held by Wang Lin slowly flew up as well. The gold on the sword had all fallen off, revealing a completely black sword. The remaining jewels on the hilt of the sword had all shattered and had been sucked into the deep pit. Zhou Yi let out a roar, increasing the power of the celestial sword, and the big sword was pulled up several dozen more feet. Wang Lin used more celestial spiritual energy and made the underworld river spin even faster. This constantly weakened the suction force. Finally, Zhou Yi rushed out of the deep pit with Wang Lin. At the moment they charged out, Wang Lin let out a roar. The big sword was pulled out and landed in Wang Lin's hand. There was a shallow word carved on the big sword: wealth. While holding wealth, many memories from the past flashed across Wang Lin's mind. He took a deep breath, and before he had time to look, Zhou Yi quickly pulled him away down a corridor nearby. Zhou Yi's speed was quick as he moved through the corridor. Wang Lin sent out a divine sense message to Zhou Yi, leading him to the only exit in the Tide Abyss, the exit at the Fire Demon country. Wang Lin held wealth in his hand and carefully looked at it before putting it in his bag of holding. That glance earlier allowed him to see some clues about the sword. If his cultivation wasn't enough, he wouldn't have seen anything, but now that his cultivation had reached the ascendant stage, it was different. However, right now was not the time to study, so he put it inside his bag of holding. Wang Lin was prepared to carefully study it after leaving the tide abyss. The trip to the tide abyss is complete. Unfortunately, I have no clue where the mysterious token is, Wang Lin began to ponder. Inside Wang Lin's bag of holding, the mosquito beast opened its eyes and revealed a hint of doubt. Normally, when inside the bag of holding, unless it used an amazing spell, it shouldn't be able to feel what was outside. However, at this moment, he felt that there were many auras that gave him a very familiar feeling. After hesitating for a bit, the mosquito still couldn't figure it out. It looked at the still sleeping Thundertoad, laid down on the Thundertoad's back, and closed its eyes. With Zhou Yi's speed, they got closer and closer to the Fire Demon Country's exit. At the same time, they were getting closer and closer to the mist and the large amount of mosquitoes surrounding Greed and his group. In the Demon Spirit Land, a cloud was flying closer from the south. This cloud was filled with celestial energy, as if it was something from the celestial realm. It released bursts of light, and as it flew across the sky, it filled the sky with color. There were two people standing on this auspicious cloud, a man and a woman. The male was in an upright posture, wearing a blue robe with azure clouds embroidered on them, and the clouds even gave off ripples. His long hair flowed behind him, revealing a handsome face. He faced the wind and held a green jade flute in his hand. Along with how his cloth fluttered in the wind, he was like a celestial. Behind him, the woman was wearing a lavender dress embroidered with small pink flowers. Her hair was loosely tied into a bun with a lavender hairpin inside. While it looked casual, it didn't lose its elegance. She had light makeup on, and her lips were red without using any cinnabar. It could be said that her body was soft and her aura was fragrant. The woman's eyes would occasionally look at the man beside her, and her eyes contained tenderness. It was obvious these two were a cultivation couple. Although normal cultivators could ride clouds and fog, they were normal white clouds and fog made from water vapor. These kinds of spells were considered low quality. Not only that, that method was not fast, and there was nothing special about it. It was only used by some people to pretend to be celestials to fool mortals. But these cultivation pairs were different. This cloud was refined from the 9th heaven cloud. Even back before the collapse of the celestial realm, it was extremely rare. The power of this cloud lay in the fact that it naturally contains celestial lightning, so its power was naturally not to be underestimated. The older generation of cultivators would immediately recognize the two after seeing the cloud. The reason is that only people at the same realm as the Blood Ancestor, Ling Tianhou, and the All-Seer could ride on a cloud like that. The Celestial Cloud Couple. The couple that came to the Demon Spirit Land back then with Ling Tianhou and the All-Seer. They occupied one of the caves and haven't left for tens of thousands of years. Wang Wei, Hu Zhuan. These two people's cultivation could already match the All-Seer and company. Along with the fact that the two were good at working together, even the All-Seer was extremely cautious of them. What the All-Seer dreaded most were their origin. These two people's identities were extremely mysterious. Even the All-Seer couldn't find out anything about them. He only vaguely knew that these two people had been cultivating for longer than even him. Luckily, these two had a very peaceful nature and didn't like to fight for power. As long as one didn't provoke them, there would be no problem. If the short old man saw these two, he would definitely immediately recognize them and gnaw his teeth. These two were the people that stole a bag of holding from him back then. The two of them rode the cloud and flew directly toward the Fire Demon Country. At the moment the cloud entered the Fire Demon Country, Bei Lu, who was under the capital of the Sky Demon Country, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes gave off a very bright, golden light, but that light soon disappeared. They actually left the cave. It looks like I have to increase the speed of devouring the other ancient demon souls. There was a very well-hidden sense of dread in Beilu's eyes. As the celestial cloud flew directly into the fire demon country, all of the clouds in the sky were forced out of the way. Even the demon generals and soldiers in the cities were all shaken. They didn't dare to fly out to check at all. Not long after, the celestial cloud stopped at the Tide Abyss exit. The cloud gradually disappeared, and the two landed. The man's eyes were filled with interest as he smiled at the woman next to him. Interesting, Honor. There are some restrictions here. These restrictions are pretty clever. The woman's eyes were filled with joy as she said with a graceful voice, "There aren't many restrictions that can arouse your interest."